Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you're having a good day today. This video is a quick example of an algebra word problem. Many students find word problems difficult when they are starting to learn algebra. They find it hard to take the information they need out of the question and turn it into equations. And this is quite tricky to do, but it is a very important skill to be able to complete these problems. This problem is not the hardest algebra problem. In fact, you might be able to do it without using algebra at all. But it is not the easiest problem either. So if you have not studied algebra, then this is not a place to start. But either way, please follow along as much as you can. And if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the comments below. So what is our problem? Dave and Carl have 372 marbles between them. Carl gives Dave 32 marbles, and then Dave gives Carl 59 marbles. After this, they both have the same number of marbles. How many marbles did Dave start with? So, what equations can we take from this information? If you would like to try this problem yourself, pause the video and have a go. But if we take Carl's starting marbles to be C and Dave's starting marbles to be D, then we can see that the information tells us that if we put Dave and Carl's marbles together, we will have 372 marbles. So our first equation is C plus D equals 372. Great, we have one equation, but we can't really do anything with it to find our answer. Just before we go on, let's make sure we remember what answer we are looking for. How many marbles did Dave start with? So, the question we are trying to answer is, what is D? This will be important shortly. However, we need another equation before we can find this answer. So, what can we make it from? The other information is just about the boys passing marbles back and forward between each other. But here is our next big clue. After this, they both have the same number of marbles. The same number. That is, after they pass marbles back and forward, they both have an equal number of marbles. And this is where our new equation is going to come from. All equations are based around an equals sign. But what is the equation going to be? Well, let's think about the passing process. Carl gives Dave 32 marbles, and then Dave gives Carl 59 marbles. Now, we can see that this is really just the same as Dave giving Carl one smaller group of marbles. How many marbles will that be? 59 minus 32 is equal to 27. So if Dave just gives Carl 27 marbles, then they can do the whole rearrangement in just one operation. And this is the number that we are going to use. After they do this, they have the same number of marbles, which means after Carl has gained 27 marbles and Dave has lost 27 marbles, they are equal. That is, C plus 27 is equal to D minus 27. So now we have two equations. Let's call this equation 1 and this equation 2. But we still can't really get an answer from these two equations because equation 2 has the variables divided on both sides. The C is on one side and the D is on the other side. So let's rearrange the equation so that all of the numbers are on one side and all of the variables are on the other. This won't be the same every time you do an algebra problem, but it is the best way to rearrange this. We should also remember that because we want to work out D, we're going to rearrange our equation so that D always stays positive. So what should we do first? Let's start off by adding 27 to both sides. So we're going to add 27 to both sides. C plus 27 is equal to D minus 27 plus 27. Minus 27 plus 27 just disappears, and so we have C plus 54 equals D. What can we do now? Well, we want to get the numbers on their own, so let's subtract C from both sides. And so C plus 54 minus C is equal to D minus C. Again, C minus C equals 0, and so we are left with D minus C equals 54. I have just flipped that around at the end. And we're going to call this equation 3. Okay, now we have two equations where both letters are on one side and all the numbers are on the other side. How do we get from here to our answer? Well, you can actually add equations, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take equation 1 and add it to equation 3. What that means is we're going to add everything on the left-hand side together, and we're going to add everything on the right-hand side together, so that overall we still have a balanced equation. If the two equations are balanced individually and we just add the two different sides, then they will still be balanced afterwards. So we can do that by putting C plus D minus C equals 372 plus 54. So we have our C plus D here, and then here we have plus D minus C. So that is our plus D minus C there. And that's 372 plus 54 on the right. C minus C, once again, cancels away. And so we now have 2D equals 426. And now that we know that, we can just divide both sides by 2. And that gives us 1D equals 213. And this is the answer we are looking for. This is Dave's starting marbles. Now, even though we have worked it out that way, there are other ways of doing it, although they won't quite be as quick. So, for example, let's say that we start off with our equation number 2 again, but this time we subtract 27 from both sides. This will give us C plus 27 minus 27 equals D minus 27 minus 27. So plus 27 minus 27 cancels out, and so we have C equals D minus 54. Now, to get C and D together, we have to minus D from both sides, subtract D from both sides, and we end up with C minus D equals minus 54. We could do an extra step and get back to our earlier equation 3, but what we have here we're going to call equation 4. So now if we take this equation and we go back to now equation 1 plus equation 4, we end up with C plus D plus C minus D equals 372 minus 54. And so this time plus D and minus D cancel out, giving us 2C equals 318, and so C equals 159. And here we have worked out Carl's starting marbles. Now, from here, it is easy to just plug C back into equation 1 and use that to find out D, and it will give us the answer of 213. But you can see that if you are careful about arranging your variables, you can make sure that you have to do the least amount of rearranging possible. Always make sure you are clear on exactly what letter is going to be your final answer. So, I hope you've enjoyed this little algebra equation video. I hope it wasn't too confusing, but if you are confused and you have any questions, then please put them in the comments below. Thank you for watching.